Welcome back to another day of working at a distillery. This is Tipsy Whiskey Shenanigans. I'm Steven, and today we have about two primary goals. We're mashing a single malt and we're transferring an existing single malt that's already been fermenting and mashing, and we're transferring it to our stripping still. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to transfer the existing mash into the stripping still. Once we've gotten that mash transferred over to the stripping still, then we're going to go ahead and actually start mashing today, which is going to be a whole heck of a lot of fun, a lot of physical work, but it's totally worth it in the end. All right, and I hope you can see me well. This is the first time I'm using the gimbal for this, so this is a little different for me, but this is our mash tun. And in here, obviously, you can see that is single malt. So I'm gonna let that start running, get that all mixed in a little bit more. And yeah, I do know it is loud, but you know, it is what it is. And then once that is completely mixed in, we will get a, oh geez Louise, I need to learn how to use this. We'll get our impeller pump, and we will then transfer it over, because that's one of the few things that can actually transfer solids over. We are kind of watching this mash tun. We're draining it into this bad mamma jamma right here. This is our stripping still. And as you can see, it's starting to fill up with mash. So basically that's all we're kind of really doing right here, is we are dumping from there into there using this ginormous pump. Oh, which way are we? There we go, that ginormous pump. So we're gonna continue doing that, and that's gonna take a while, and then we'll get back to you once we start actually doing the whole mashing process. And I made a freaking mess. So right down there, that is where all of that grain just went in. And I pulled it off a wee bit too early, and I dumped grain all over the floor, so now you're gonna watch me freaking clean things. Okay, so now that we've moved the mash, we got the water heating up, we need to prep to dump the grains in. So we need to get the grains all the way over there where the mash tun is to actually, you know, dump them into the mash tun in the near future. All right, now we've done a few things off camera. I do apologize, I'm still working this whole thing out. But right now, I just checked the pH reading of the mash that's currently in the stripping still. Looks like, or the pH and the bricks reading, I should say. Looks like we're at about 9% beer, so we're ready to start distilling that starting tomorrow. And the tank has reached temp, so I've dumped in all the hot water needed. I've dumped in about 20 ounces of calcium bicarbonate, calcium CaCO3 into it in order to kind of help balance out the pH when we dump in the grains. But the tank temp is at temp, all the water in it's at temp, we have some calcium in it, so now it's time to dump all these grains that we spent a hot minute pulling back and forth to finally start the actual mashing process and get this fermentation going. getting into a little bit less of the physical labor and a little bit more of the watching paint dry part of mashing. So now we need to cool this down. So we have right here a handy dandy little computer that we basically will configure for cold water that runs in from here. I'm just going to take you back here. Cold water that runs in from the shore down into here. It goes through a bunch of tubes that are in the back of this, and it will come out to this. Then after those finally cool down enough where we can dump it straight down the drain, because I think our drains are rated for like 120 degrees, and because it's currently 150 degrees right now, it's not safe to dump down that drain. So we're gonna send it into the hot liquor tank first, and then we're gonna send it down the drain. And then we have a cool tank all the way over there that literally just holds water that we cool down. And then once it reaches under like 110-ish, that's when we'll just start circulating the water through. So at that point, I'm not gonna film all that because it's just like super boring and whatever. But basically, I'm gonna be switching through those different cooling methods to try to get this mash tun down to 100 degrees so we can actually start working with it. More updates. So, I'm not gonna lie, I forgot to film quite a bit of stuff today, or quite a bit of things kind of on the to-do list. So what we have achieved so far, like I said, is we're back at the distillery. Currently the mash tun is running, it's doing its thing, it's mashing the whiskey. Right now it's at about 96-ish degrees. We can't pitch the yeast, which basically means we throw in the yeast until it's at like 90 degrees, or else the heat will absolutely kill the yeast. That being said, what we did here is we did pull out right there. We did pull out some of it, about like 6 cups or so worth of the actual mash, and then we added all the yeast into it, so it's starting to kind of ferment inside the bucket. We proofed it down, obviously cooled it down before we added the yeast, so again the yeast didn't die. But basically the yeast have started to eat the sugars, they're starting to ferment, it's starting to bubble over because of that, and that's what we'll call that our starter yeast. This is us starting the yeast where, it kind of allows the yeast to get accumulated to eating up the starch and the sugars inside the mash tun without throwing it directly into a ginormous mash tun with so much sugar, so they won't get to the point where they eat so much sugar that they create so much alcohol right away that they kill themselves. So basically we want to keep them happy and all that jazz. We've also added a few other things, just basically some growth enzymes and kind of superfood to again keep the yeast happy, as well as this thing called firm cap, which basically stops foaming. It's like an anti-foaming agent in a way, so we added that to it. That way, when I come in tomorrow, even if it's a super active fermentation, hopefully we're not gonna see it ferment over the mash tun and spill out in here, because we are limited with capacity with our mash tun, so we don't really want it to like overflow on us, because that is a crappy day. So yeah, that's basically what we're waiting on. I'm also getting the strip and still, it's completely set up. I already had the condensers pre-set up way before this and all that jazz. So basically it's set up. All we got to do is add in the faints from the last run, and then we're gonna start strip stilling it automatically over the night. I'm gonna come in the morning and verify that it's actually up and running. But outside of that, we're pretty much done for the day. Finally, we've pitched the yeast. That means we are done for the day. We have the still already set up to start stripping the previous mash that we just pushed into it today. So we'll come back tomorrow morning and check on how that's going. It's gonna automatically turn on at night, so by the time we get in the morning, it should be up to temp and actually start producing some spirits. So we'll catch back in the morning.